Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about a photographer which has a huge body of work. She mixed her personal life with photography, and I want to talk about Nan Goldin, which has an exhibition at the Grand Palais in Paris until the 21st of June. It's called It Will Not End Well. But I also want to talk about her photography and how I walked out of this exhibition with new findings. Because Nan Goldin is not a photographer I was very fond of. So in this video I'm going to talk quickly about the exhibition because it's until the 21st of June. I definitely recommend that you go if you still have time, if you're in Paris. But I also want to talk about the findings, what I learned from this photographer, how I walked out, feeling a bit different from this exhibition. So stay tuned with me. So how did I discover Nan Goldin photography? I did a master in photography. I was a mature student. I went back to university at 45, did a master in fine art photography. And my lecturers were absolutely fond of Nan Goldin. And I looked at her photos and thought, what is this? It looks like a snapshot. It's badly lit. It's not in focus. What is this about? They were really adamant that she was an amazing artist, but I didn't want to learn from her. I didn't want to learn anything from her photography. I didn't think this is a photographer I want to learn from. So I kind of shut down really. Each time I tried to see the exhibition in Arles last year. I didn't manage to get in. It was completely fully booked, so I didn't see it. But this time I thought, I'm going to make the effort to go to the Grand Palais. And I'm going to make the effort to look at the photography river, trying to go without any prejudice, any judgment. And I did well because this exhibition was nothing like I expected. First of all, the exhibition is not like a normal exhibition. It's at the Grand Palais until the 21st of June in Paris. So it's called It Will Not End Well. But I went in, and first of all she said, please don't take any photos, don't share any images on the internet for my friend, because most of the work she shares is personal work. Friends, her community, even herself, battling addictions. So she didn't want us to share anything, which I didn't. I wrote a post on Substack, but I didn't share any images. And I invite you to maybe look in books, look online if you're curious about the photography and you don't know anything about Nan Goldin. So a little bit of history about Nan Goldin. She was born in Washington, D.C. in 1953. She has a photography practice like no other photographer really, because this is one of the only photographers I know who mixed personal life with photography. I think we have a bit of that with Sally Mann when she photographed her children at the beginning. But you haven't got many photographers who really mix their personal life, and I think that makes her stand out. I think another photographer is a bit like her is David Armstrong, which I saw last year in Arles as well, an exhibition. I didn't know this photographer, and I found his photography pretty close to Nan Goldin. But there's no surprise there because they were friends and they studied at the same college. She was the youngest child of a family of four, grew up in Boston. At 15, she integrated a school, a kind of alternative school, which was a bit like Somerville in England. So there were no constraints, no rules really. So she was free to roam, free to explore her creativity. And also the school was given by the MIT. They were given some Polaroid cameras. She became the official school photographer. She bought her first camera at 16 and she starts to photograph her friends, her community. She starts to experiment with black and white using the darkroom. David Armstrong, the photographer as well, was one of her first subjects. So they were really close at school and they developed a photography practice together. In the 70s, she moved a group of drag queens which became her friends. She was really close to them and she lived with them. And this is one of the first project that she did, documenting the community of drag queens. She was fascinated by them. I think it's a fascinating subject, especially in the 70s where society finally open up a bit. This is also the time that she started using slide film. She started to do diaporama. Why am I talking about diaporama? Because the exhibition that you're going to see at the Grand Palais are mostly diaporamas. But I'm going to talk about a little bit more in detail about the exhibition. I'm just going to keep you a little bit more information about Nan Goldin, her background, and how she developed a photography practice. So in 1978, she moved to New York. She continued documenting her friend, the community in bar. She was really mixing up with a kind of underground. She didn't want to be conform to what society was expecting of her, definitely not. And I think maybe it's a bit about also a sad story about her sister. Her sister was older, grew up in a society where she was not allowed to explore her sexuality, she was not allowed to explore her identity, being interned in a psychiatric asylum, and unfortunately she took her own life. And most of the photography she did in New York in the bar are intimate scenes of friends of she was not scared to really get very close with a camera. I think some of these scenes are very, very intimate. Some of these have made me really uncomfortable because they felt very voyeuristic, but maybe these people completely forgot that Nan was around them. In a way, she documented a time, a period which was very the 70s, the 80s with the beginning of AIDS, and it was just something completely, I would say, completely unique because it was pre-social media, it was this voyeuristic society we live in. So it's something I definitely, I grew up through this period, so I know a little bit more about it. But if you don't know anything about it, I definitely recommend you look at her photography. And she did these intimate scenes because she wanted to keep these images of a friend forever. And especially with AIDS, she was even more adamant to keep a trace, to keep a testimony of this friend, of this community around her was suffering deeply. 1981 to 2022, she starts the Ballad of Sexual Dependency. This was an amazing diaporama at the exhibition. Images of her friend, images of love, images of community, images of friendship, images of joy, of fun, of excess, life. I didn't really live this through this, the nightlife in New York, this type of nightlife. I was not the life of the party, definitely not. So I can just live this experience through her photography. In this Ballad of Sexual Dependency, she's also sharing different themes about domestic violence, about identity, intimacy, a lot of identity about people who are searching themselves, their sexuality, love and loss. She was deeply affected by the loss of her friends during the AIDS period, which I can imagine it must have been really, really dramatic. And what she said, so this is a quote by Nan Goldin: "My work is mostly about memory. It is very important to me that everybody that have been close in my life, I make a photograph of them." And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think we should, as photographer, even if you're just an amateur photographer, I think we should definitely document our friends more. I know it's difficult. I try to do as much as I can documenting my family, but people don't like to have a camera put in their face. So it's difficult to stand out of the scene and not to get noticed. Maybe we have to use much smaller camera. I definitely don't want to use a phone camera. I'm thinking about using a small snapshot with film. But it's something, many times I miss a photograph because I don't want to intrude. I don't want to be, people tend to hide when they see a camera, and especially the family. This is something I always love, browsing through family albums, looking at pictures from people I didn't know. And I think it's important that we continue to document this type of photography, also photographing friends and maybe sharing images with them. I think that's a wonderful tool that we have and that we should definitely share more. So from the 2000s, she has really made being a recognized artist. She was exhibited at the MoMA. In 2017, she established the Pain Foundation about people who got addicted to OxyContin, against the Cyclist family, who just has participated in a group called Oxy Justice. Compared to other photographers, I explained earlier, her work is definitely about intimacy. So be prepared that some of the images might be quite striking, a bit shocking. She saw herself as documenting and trying to keep traces of her friends as long as possible, and especially with photography. So she did a big work of memory. So for her, photography was really about a testimony, memory, sharing good moments, but also hardships. So when I woke up at the exhibition at the Grand Palais, it's on the first floor. I was welcomed by this text saying, please don't take any photos, don't share anything on the internet, which I respected. And honestly, there's not much you won't be able to do, because most of this exhibition are diaporama and you're going to be in the dark. Honestly, I think you want to respect her wishes. So to my surprise, it was pitch dark when I walked into the first diaporama. The exhibition is divided in 6 diaporama. So you have the Ballad of Sexual Dependency, you have the other side, Memory Lost, Sirens, the Saint and Sibyl. A little bit part of the exhibition also at La Salpêtrière. Why did she do slideshow? She said she always wanted to be a filmmaker, so her slideshow are mainly films made from stills. The Stendhal Syndrome diaporama, which dates from 2024, I absolutely love this one. It really got me closer to her photography. Why? Because she used a lot of Baroque and Renaissance painting, which I'm really in love with. She set them next to her photography. So she used a lot of intimate scene, reproducing. She used a lot of Greek mythology as a synergy to her images and in Baroque paintings, and she set her images of intimacy, mostly of couple holding together, very intimate images, but it was done beautifully. I think I saw her photography completely to a different light, and I'm going to explain when I walked out of this exhibition, how I felt and what it invited me to do. So what I liked about being in the dark is there was no distraction. You couldn't look on your phone, you just had to concentrate. And definitely I kept my phone in my bag, knowing that I wouldn't take any photos through respect to wishes. But it's because our perception was completely different. You didn't expect to walk into the dark, but also you are much more, I think you're more focused, more concentrated, like when you walk into a cinema. You're not going to try to play with your phone when you're watching a big feature film on screen or trying to. So this was a great, and as I said, I absolutely love this format of what is a Stendhal syndrome is a kind of nearly a feeling, a very, very strong feeling. You're nearly fainting when you look at a piece of art, and I completely get it, because when I walk into the Uffizi, see some of the Botticelli paintings, the birth of Venus, I have this amazing well-being feeling. Of course, I'm not fainting, I'm not to this point, but it makes me feel so wonderful. I just, and I completely get this Stendhal feeling. So she was using this symbolism of art who makes you really, and she had this kind of experience when she was in the Louvre. So it's really about making you feel, and I think this is what she wanted to do with the Stendhal syndrome, because I loved it, because I'm absolutely a big fan of Renaissance, of Baroque painting. I just love it because it's full of drama, it's full of light, shadows, a lot of harsh contrast, and also rich textures and primary colors. This is the one I started with, and it really had a big impact on me. I absolutely love this one. As I said, I was not a photographer who loved Nan Goldin photography, but there she really had me. She knew how to touch me, and definitely focusing on intimacy and mixed with Baroque painting was pretty amazing. The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, that's really a huge body of work, over 40 years spanning of intimacy, of community, of her friends, of all the people who lived with her, or the people she met in her life. It's a major body of work of all the photographs, also in New York. She traveled to Berlin, to London. It's about 700 portraits of close-knit friends where she transports us to different places, to different locations. Transport us back to the life of in the 80s, 90s. I think for that, this is a pretty amazing documentary of this period of time. I looked at these images with curiosity, but also with sorrow, because definitely there was a lot of pain in these images as well, about the sorrow of losing friends to AIDS, but also there was addiction, there was love, there was intimacy. I think when you look at this image, you nearly forgot that she was there photographing, because people were completely open. They didn't even hardly notice her. Be ready to be shocked, to be questioned, it's nothing like you can see on Instagram, very polished in social media. This is about real life, and she's not scared to show it. This is what she wanted to do. She wanted to show us what it looks like. She didn't want to do anything like commercial or transform it, or that's why some of the images are either out of focus. The light is all over the place. Just use a flash. This is a photographer who walked in a scene and say, okay, I'm going to do with what I have here. I'm not going to try to intervene to transform the scene. She didn't want to transform the scene. She wanted to show us what it looks like. Looking at the pictures, about getting very intimate, about with her friends, really invited me as an artist to question my work, to ask me, what do I want to do next? What type of work do I want? And definitely intimacy and vulnerability came up for me. So I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I will share it with you. The memory loss diaporama. So this is about the meander of addiction. People suffering memory loss is also about when you lose so many days and nights, and because you're addicted to a substance and you can't remember if it's night and day, you just live for one thing, getting your hit. This is what she explains into this diaporama about memory loss, because it's about the day lost, the night lost. You can't remember, you can't figure out who you are anymore. She suffered from addiction, from opioids. She really knows what she's talking about. She also shared how she felt, the trouble that she suffered. The siren is the other side of memory loss. It's what drugs do to you to make you feel good. The journey that it takes you on. So you have the sirens, and then you have the consequence of the memory lost. The other side diaporama is about the universe of transgender people. The other side is the name of a queer bar in Boston that she went to in the 1970s. This is where she met the drag queen community she lived with, she really connected with. And this is where the period of time where she started to take photos. She said she fell in love with the drag queen. I can imagine in 1917 must have been something completely new, crazy, because we came out of this very puritanic period of the 60s, and then suddenly everything exploded and everything was free and everybody was free, and especially I think for women as well. Meeting queer people in the 70s, meeting drag queen must have been really something out of the blue. Sister Saint and Sibyl is at the Salpêtrière. It's more about her sister, the drama that her sister went through. So now I'm going to give you 5 powerful actions that we can take from her photography. So the number 1 is shoot what you love, not shoot what you should. If you're doing photography for work, I think it's very difficult to, when we have a passion and we want to make money out of it. So possibly we have to shoot some stuff we don't like. But this is about your personal work. Shoot really what you love, not what you should. What I'm talking here as well is about don't shoot for social media. Shoot something that your heart, what's really deep inside. Exhibition is going to draw you to intimacy as well. It's going to draw you to be more vulnerable. So why not experience with that? She focused on what mattered to her. So this was a friend, a community, the documenting the life was not about what was commercially sound off. In a way, I would say it was easy for her. This was the 70s, the 80s. There were not that many photographers, and not many people were doing this type of photography. And she got noticed as an artist. I think a lot of photographers are struggling to get noticed as an artist. We have to do commercial work just to be able to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, photography is not just a technical skill. It's a way to use your voice as an artist to share a message. Do that. Even if you haven't got much time, try to create a personal project. And a personal project doesn't have to finish in 2 months. You can do it over the years. You just have a mission. What is your message? What do you want to share? So are you the most interested in photography if it's not considered commercial? Just try for 1 week. Focus on one place, people, something that really is of interest just for 1 week and see how it goes. Get out of your comfort zone. Embrace imperfection. So definitely Nan Goldin was not into perfection. If you look at the photography, there's a lot of images out of focus, the use of flash, it can be very grainy, it can be too dark. She walked into a scene and she worked with it. She didn't try to change it or to transform it. This was a way to document. And she's the antithesis of commercial photography. Commercial photography where everything is polished. You have if you go through the images of a magazine, imagine this transformed into Nan Goldin's photography. I think maybe they tried to do this maybe in the 90s, this type of photography, even in advertising. But now everything is super polished, is transformed, is with the use of there's not a wrinkle inside with the use of Photoshop. The light is perfect because these brands have to sell their product, and they're not selling a product, they're selling a dream. Nan Goldin's looks more like snapshot. And I think that's a great trait to go back a bit to play again. Maybe why not buy a little snapshot camera or maybe a disposable film camera and just try to snap whatever you see. Just to go back to playing with the idea of photography, forgetting about the technique, the lens, the aperture, the speed. Just maybe go back to like a little kid using back crayon and paper, and just get away from the constraint of the technique, and just try to be playful again. The way she used photography, it was very raw, and I think definitely this added to intimacy, because you can't really maybe somebody's going to say the contrary, but I don't think you can convey intimacy with images with like in advertising with a huge with the perfect lighting, studio lighting. I think it would make more completely out of place. How can you express intimacy to something with such harsh contrast and harsh light? You want something with more subdued. You want subdued, softer light, maybe softer transition between light and shadows. So maybe try this. Next time set your camera to 3200 ISO. Or maybe use film to have more grain in your images, and also use motion and blur. So what she did as well, she told a story, not just moments, and this is about long-term projects. So instead of just creating one image, try to tell a story. What do you want to say? Maybe you were at a family dinner and you want to say something about it. So you're not just gonna take pictures of people around the table, but you're gonna maybe the preparation in the kitchen, people sitting on a sofa having a conversation, maybe in the flat, the books on the shelves, anything, the flowers. Just try to tell a story and create a series out of it. Get close and personal. I know this is going to be a difficult one in the time we live in, because people are so used to get a camera in their face and just don't want it. But she got very close and personal with her friend. No, I'm not saying to get too close to your friends, but definitely try to be the little mouse in the corner. Maybe people will forget about you, and just stay there and take photograph. Of course, this is going to be difficult if you're in a dark place situation without using a flash, and you don't want to use a flash just pushing this harsh light into people's face. Yeah, just try to get maybe close and personal, and use photography as your diary. This is something I promised to do myself a long time, but I still haven't bought this film snapshot camera. I don't want to use my phone, I don't know why, and I definitely want to take a photo a day. I think this is a wonderful way to relearn, to see again, to forget about the constraint that we put ourselves in with the technique, the lighting, etc. And learning to see again, learning to look around us, the everyday beauty. And I think this is a very easy one to do, or maybe just buy a disposable film camera. Maybe I should try that. And just photograph a day. No editing, no overthinking, and you might see an evolution in your images, because I think from day 1 to day 30, the way you see might be completely different. And it's also going to spark your creativity. Use a single light source, a lamp, a window. We can use a diffused light from the window, it's really beautiful, or maybe use a very dim light. Just experiment with your model, or even try to create an atmosphere with the lighting. So we are photographers, we also have a mission about expressing ourselves, saying something with this tool, and use it. Even just in your community somewhere, do you have something to say about it? You want to share something about it? As I walked out, I felt I was really overtaken by it. My idea about photography has completely changed. As I said, when I used to study for the masters in photography, I was not interested in photography. I thought this is not something I'm going to learn anything from this woman. Walking out of this exhibition, definitely it encouraged me to be more intimate, more vulnerable with photography, and to look at things differently. People around me. It's just going to encourage you to get more intimate, more vulnerable with your photography, explore different directions, something you really never thought about. So what is one rule of photography you've been afraid to break? This is your invitation to do it. So I hope you enjoyed this video about Nan Goldin and her photography. If you have the chance, go and see her exhibition. I'm sure it's going to be somewhere else after Paris. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.